Hi everyone. I'm just going to quickly go over how to write a lesson plan as a refresher. If you've been doing them in your other classes, you don't need to watch this video. But if you need a refresher, I'm going to base this one on the story Pete the Cat in White Shoes. I did post the book reading on Moodle. So if you watch that, it's a 4-minute video on the book, then you'll better understand this lesson plan. I'm going to try to keep it short so I can post it. But there's a lot we could teach with Pete the Book. If we're looking at maybe first or second or third grade ELPD levels of emerging or transitional, we could talk about cause and effect. We could talk about prediction, colors. There's a lot we could teach. In this lesson, I'm going to focus in on character traits. So under unit, I'm not going to fill in the things which are obvious, but under unit themes, I have character traits. And we would say it's maybe a 30-minute lesson. It would maybe come in the middle. Maybe we have a small group of 6 students. This next section is important when it talks about diversity. This we need a lot of details about your particular students. So here I say it's a small group, 6 students. They're newcomers from Saudi Arabia. Emerging speakers. The other 3 are ELPD transitional levels. 2 boys are from Mexico, and the 3rd is a girl from Russia. So there's a little bit of details about your students. Resources, I put here that we need the book, graphic organizer, yada, yada, yada. Okay, big idea being taught. We're going to talk about character traits. Rationale, this one, why do we really need to teach it? Why is it important we talk about character traits? So, you really think back, why is it important? I say here, students have just learned about characters. So they want to say, why is this important at this time? What's the before and what's in the after? So I write, students have just learned about characters. So moving into character traits is natural. It's justifiable to teach students how to identify character traits because it allows students to examine character and their own growth, helps them obtain more meaning out of text, and helps them become more conscientious readers, yada, yada, yada. So you can read that. So this is what we're looking for. Why do we really care? This is important in the lesson plan. Who cares? This is why you need to say, it's important I teach this because. Okay, prior knowledge. What do they really have to understand your lesson? So they really have to understand something about animals because the book's about a cat. And then maybe something about wearing shoes and the idea of getting dressed. And maybe the idea of new shoes. Okay, so, wearing shoes, new shoes, sorry, getting dressed. Okay, so this is ideas that they need to understand. Prior skills. Well, they're listening to you read a book, so they do need listening skills. And then maybe they need recall skills because you're going to ask questions throughout the book. Prior academic language. What actual words should they really know to understand the book, especially if you have English language learners? So they really should understand the word cat. They should understand the word of white shoes. You can go back to the book. They probably need to know mud, and they need to know the word love because he talks about, I love my shoes, I love my shoes, I love my shoes. So these are actual words. All right, the next is the learning objective. This is super important. We need to write it twice, once for the teacher's version and once for the students. So I'm going to pause while I type this. Okay, so we need the teacher's version to identify a character trait from the main character, and then actually the student's version. I will be able to describe a character trait of a main character. Okay, let's move on to content standards. We now use next generation standards. I have them posted over here in Moodle for you. Next generation. We're going to go to grades P through 2, so let's open these up. And we said we're going to talk about character traits. So we have key ideas and details, craft and structure, grades PK, K, 1, 2. So let's go through grades 1 and 2 here. Identify a main topic, describe characters, setting, that one's good. Describe characters respond to major events, this one's good. Identify a main topic or central idea, key details. Explain words and phrases. And so we're going to look through here till we find a really good, at least 2 standards that our lesson will try to meet. Okay, so here's a good one. And we know, especially in English language learning, that students need to make connections between self and text. It has to be engaging. It has to be meaningful. So I'm just going to take this whole standard. I'm going to go back to my lesson plan. And one standard I want to put in there is this standard. Is that paste. I want students to make connections between self and text and other people in the world. So I'm going to put this also in here. And I might modify this. Also, it's important for students to make a connection between themselves and the text. And this is important. So I've just added this. And, oops, so you can fix all that later. And character traits, you can also say, and then here, making connections to self. So we've also already added something based on our standards. Let's see if we can find a standard that talks about character traits. So we're going to go back to our learning standards. Okay, and here we have one right here. In literary text, describe how characters respond to major events and challenges. In informational text, we're doing literary text, so we can take this one. We can talk about how Pete the cat responds to getting his shoes dirty. That's a character trait. Does he get angry and upset, or does he stay calm and relaxed? So we're going to add this one as well. So now right away we have two standards that our lesson is really going to try to meet here. So 2 is usually enough, but if you really go back, there's actually a whole bunch more we could take. I see down here there's print concepts, phonological awareness, but you come all the way down to fluency in writing. Here in writing standards in first grade, write, let's see here, is it write a narrative which recounts, create a response, develop questions, participate in collaborative conversations, so students could begin talking about it. So you can get some comprehensive collaboration. They could recall and represent relevant information. So there's a lot you can pull from the standards to put in your lesson. Sometimes students like to begin with the standards first to give them ideas. Hey, how could I use this book? Well, there's a lot to use when you start with the standards. So make sure that you use those standards posted. Okay, now we have academic language demands, and this is a pretty important part of the lesson plan. The language demand is actually what's the activity that the student's going to do? How's it going to manifest? And we're going to say that the students get to fill out maybe a graphic organizer showing Pete's reaction to stepping in the different colored fruit. So the language demand, it says the method students to express understanding. So language demand is going to be correct completion of final activity, which has students matching a picture of Pete's response to the event. So maybe, oops, sorry, correct completion. So maybe what you have is, and I don't have anything created right now for it, but you have a picture of Pete being upset, excited, sad, happy, and you show the pictures of the events, and the students have to correctly match them. So it's correct completion of final activity or final activity assessment, which has students matching a picture. So it's really what they're going to do. Are they going to write an essay? They're going to write a paragraph? Or they're going to have a conversation? Here we're going to have a completion of a graphic organizer, correct completion, and we can say correct completion of, here, a graphic organizer, and then you can put in parentheses, okay, this is what it shows. Okay, language functions. What are they going to have to do? What are the verbs they have to do? What we already have here, they're going to describe a character trait. Oh my gosh, I didn't even see I misspelled that. C-H-A-A-R-A. I can't even see it so little. A-C character. Is that right? I can't even see it. Okay, so language functions. Use the verbs. They're going to describe a character trait, and they're going to complete a graphic, or oh my gosh, I did it again. Describe a character trait, and language function would be the word describe. We're going to put that in bold. Here it says language function, analyze, compare, interpret, retell. So they're going to describe character trait. Vocabulary tier 2, we know this. These are words that are necessary for them to complete challenging words. But they'll be learning them throughout the lesson. So the book might be shoes, would be the tier 2. What else is in there? Strawberry, blueberry. And then you have words are tier 3, which are only specifically for this particular lesson. In this lesson, a tier 3 word would be just what would just come up for this lesson. So maybe it would be splash. Splash would just come up for this lesson. It's not that common word of a common word. I mean, it would eventually, but for this lesson, he splashes into the strawberries. And also there is the word, he says, oh goodness me. I think he says, oh goodness me, right? So it's oh goodness me. That's an expression that only comes up in the book. Might be a little bit off in that. Discourse. This means conversation. How are the students going to talk about it, either writing or speaking? Here, where you're going to have them maybe turn and talk to a pair partner. So you're going to do maybe a pair share, a brief discussion. So this is them talking. Pair share. They turn and they talk with each other. Syntax. This is your grammar. How are they going to put their sentences together? This is correct. So something like this, students will speak in correct sentences, grammar-wise. Okay, great. Diagnostic. Now this is assessment. What do you do before? What do you do during? What do you do after? Well, we already know the summative assessment will be the correct completion of a graphic organizer. So we're going to put that right down here. We know that that's how we know that they've done it right. Okay, formative feedback to learners. This is how you understand their learning throughout the lesson and before you start the lesson. Before we start the lesson, we talk to students about what they know about the topic. You engage them. You make it meaningful. So you're going to talk to students about their pets and maybe talk about new clothes for school, and you get them engaged. This is what we're going to begin with. In the middle, how do you know that they understand? Well, you're going to listen and respond to questions throughout the lesson. You turn around, you walk around to little groups talking, and you listen and respond. Okay, expectations for students, learners. Okay, so if they meet the expectation, we know that they have correct completion of the graphic organizer. That's what they've done. They've done their job. If they're below, they're going to have some mistakes in the graphic organizer. And, oops, sorry. That's why you should always take typing. If they exceed, if they're better, then maybe they've had additional pictures or words with the graphic organizer. Okay, so they've done a little bit more. Okay, now this is where you talk about the lesson. This should each have 5 to 7 sentences. At the beginning, what's going to happen in the first 5 minutes? In the middle, what's going to happen for the next 15, 20 minutes? In the end, how do you finish it? So here you're going to say, students will gather around the table. We will begin by talking about their own pets. I'll ask students to share brief stories. Okay, then you're going to go on. You're going to talk about new clothes they might get for school, just to begin to engage them. Middle, oh gosh, sorry about all this. Oh, you can fix that later. Middle, you actually read the book and you invite the students to talk about the book. And then you talk about the character traits, then maybe you do your graphic organizer and you follow up on that. Differentiation. Okay, if you have students with IEPs, you specifically have to say this. So you could say, student A has an IEP that requires extra time. I will be sure to give this student extra time to complete the task. Okay, so you're going to say that. Some students need things read to them. Some students need maybe a different location. Whatever it is, you must put it in here. If none of your students have an IEP, then you're going to say no IEPs. That's great. That's easy. No IEPs. If your students are super strong, how are you going to challenge the above average students? Maybe you have them write an additional page to the book. If they could add one more story, maybe what would Pete the Cat step in next? Maybe he steps in apples. Oh no, apples would be white. Maybe he steps in bananas and his sneaks turn yellow. So what, you want to do something interesting and fun, engaging. Okay, and then facilitating a classroom environment that supports student learning. Teacher is open and friendly and invites questions. There you go. You have an open and friendly conversation. Oh my gosh, I'm already at 15 minutes. This won't post. Okay. Extensions. Okay, we're going to have to finish this a little bit later. You can look at the sample I have up there. I'm not sure this is going to post. All right, thanks. Bye.